Okay, today I'm going to be discussing women in disaster situations. Um, of course, we all know that women have different needs than men, and women are, more prone to being um, species-wise the weaker link in society. So, with that being said, I'm going to cover a few things that probably are going to lead to basically um, gender biases in disaster, established roles of women during disaster situations, and the special attention to women and their needs. Um, Firstly, I like to say that, we must realize that women are the lifeline to any human life. So we have to treat them very precious and handle their needs and everything that goes along with the disaster situation because it affects us differently. Women versus men, for example. You know, I have a picture that I'm going to show that will kind of put things in perspective. It's a picture from Hurricane Katrina, with this older black woman, basically who was a refugee from Hurricane Katrina. Um, and it's very touching. So, it was to me. In my research, I basically found that disaster situations tend to um, cause more conflict and more harm to female population than the male population. Because being that females are the weaker link in society, they tend to go through more things, you know, in certain, especially, when you think about the chaotic situations of Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, where I'm sure everyone heard reports of women being raped and beaten and different things of that nature. So we have to take that into perspective. Um, Couple things that you know I would like to just throw out is women and children account for more than 75% of the refugees and displaced persons at risk during natural disasters. So not only women, you have to also throw children in the mix as well. Being that children are the offspring of women, they're pretty much more apt to going through some of the same or similar situations. So, I mean, and that's where uh, the gender biases in disaster related situations really come into effect. What I had on display were some pictures from the most horrific storm in American history, Hurricane Katrina. Um, of course, we know the toll that that storm had on New Orleans, and it is a prime example of what a storm can do. Um, I'm gonna go into my 3 points that I would like to make, and the first one is gender biases in disaster-related situations. Um, as we all know, women are viewed as the most vulnerable of all the people involved in disaster situations, but it's actually during my research, I found that there are some bright spots to actually having women assist in disaster situations. And the biggest thing that I noticed in my research was that women tend to plan better for disaster situations than, I guess, men from my research. So, With that being said, um, some examples of the contribution that women can make in those type situations is the deliberate involvement of women in planning and implementation, preparedness, response, and recovery programs. Um, Research says that without women being involved in that it will suffer. Which, being that they're the most vulnerable ones in the emergency situations, that's probably, I would think that it's probably the most truthful, because they're gonna go through the most changes during the situation. For example, if you notice the pictures, you notice the female, praying to God because the situation was so bad in New Orleans. You notice the female walking through New Orleans with the baby that was naked. Um, and basically that goes into my next point, which is established roles of women during disaster situations. Um, Women basically need to be in the planning stages, or the pre-storm stages of a horrific storm like Katrina. They tend to, like I said earlier, be able to uh, give heed to the things that are most important and the things that are needed during those type situations. Which also goes into my final point, which is the conclusion of my presentation. Special attention to women and their needs in disaster situations, such as hurricanes like Hurricane Katrina. Women have, of course, like I've been saying the whole time, they're the most vulnerable. Um, they're the ones that we tend to need to look at closer, because they're the lifeline. They are basically one of the most important contributing factors to how society will continue to grow and expand. So this concludes my presentation. I hope it was helpful to some. That's it. Thank you.